an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who, Season 3, Episode 13, The Sound of Drums. In this episode, guess what? Mr. Saxon is actually the Master. That's a surprise. This is a weird twist. This whole episode felt strange. And I'm going to have to warn you all, I'm going to be mean to it. I hated this.
What?
So much. So much. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha.
I'm Jamie.
So, Jamie, you were saying before we started recording?
Well, I just enjoyed this so much more than I ever did in the past because I have changed how I view very campy actors.
Okay.
And I like them so much more than I used to because it used to be like, this is a serious situation and this guy is just being goofy. But now I really like that goofy. So John Sims' performance to me was very enjoyable. And that made me enjoy the episode more.
I think John Sims is the only person this episode that seemed to know what fucking show he was on. Part of what I disliked so much about this episode is the fact that it felt off tone every other scene. It was just like, when you were with him, it was like you were hanging out with the Joker, somebody on a friggin' cartoon, and it was really fun and weird, and he was just so, like, excited to be doing his mischief and whatever. And then you would go back to everybody else, and there were tears in their eyes, and this, like, really high drama feel that just didn't work for me in the way that I feel like it needed to for me to care about this. And there is just a thing that this show keeps doing where they're like, we're going to present this obstacle and then we're going to not care about it and just wipe it out of the way as soon as we don't really need it for the plot anymore. We're going to pretend that never mattered.
Are you talking about how they got away from the people who were getting into the laboratory?
I'm talking about so much. There's not even one particular thing that I'm referencing when I say that. There are a million times this episode where they set up something and then just sort of do away with it and don't care. And initially, when I started this episode and it begins with them just getting away from these people and like fucking time traveling back to, I definitely had to stop and be like, wait, am I on the right episode? So yes, that's definitely one of them. And I'm still mad about not only how easy that is, how absurdly easy it was. The Doctor is literally fixing this thing while still on Jack's wrist while they're fighting back a horde of people. But also, the special effects when they disappear, I genuinely thought that horde had come with them. Because when they disappear from the scene, nobody else is behind that door anymore.
Well, that's
it's a
just
mess.
bad. That's bad editing.
It is. So I was low-key throughout the first half of this episode waiting for all those other people to turn up in London with their friggin' teeth.
That would have been interesting.
And I really just thought that was going to be what this episode did, was going to introduce a whole other, like, weird... And then it became pretty clear to me after a bit that that was not what they were intending at all, and I sort of let go of it. But I didn't think that that was an editing thing. I thought that was them hinting to us that, like, anybody who had been touching Jack came, too. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, they had just had their hands, like, through the slightly open door and had been pulled through also. So yeah, I just don't understand how we can end at that fucking like moment and then move on to a totally separate story and leave that all behind. And I don't know if we're going to come back to it at some point and re-enter that moment and have to deal with it. But I don't get the feeling that's what's going to happen. And I don't understand what the setup was for if we're not actually going to deal with the thing that you set up.
Well, I think
that's the fun part, is getting out of shit like that in an interesting way.
I think the show feels like what they set up was the reveal that this old professor was the master. That's the threat that they need to get through.
It is, but you can't have that, like, end it any other way then.
I don't disagree. I just think that normally we follow the Doctor and his companions through this specific thing that has been set up. And it really is a fault of the writers we didn't need these people in the first place. These, sharp-toothed future kind. Ultimately, they didn't matter. So there was no reason to have them there. It was like, well, they need to have a threat. And if there's no threat until the reveal of the Master, then it's going to be boring. And it really feels like it was tacked on.
Completely.
Because what really matters is the Master. And so this episode is about the Doctor realizing that he's not alone, that the Master still exists, there's another Time Lord, but also that this guy is batshit and has taken over the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, we'll get on to this, but, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. This one, like, there have been some episodes that I was just like, oh, God. But this one was the first one that I got really angry at, because there is so much potential here to do something really interesting. And I just feel like they keep on focusing on the least interesting things and playing games with what is possible and deciding completely on the spur of the moment to change the rules because they just need it to happen in such a way that it makes everything feel completely ungrounded. Like, there's no rules to anything. You just decide, oh, well, the Doctor knows this, so he can fix that just because he knows. But then there are things that he really should know, like that what is it? The image destabilizer or like perception destabilizer?
The perception filter?
Filter apparently does not work on a Time Lord. Would you not think the Doctor would be aware of that?
You would think.
One really would think. So I don't know if that's supposed to be in the end part of his plan that, oh, I wanted to get caught. It's like the thing that's been going on in the last 10 years where I'm only arrested because I want to be inside the prison. And maybe that's going to be what it is, that this was all part of his big plan. But it feels like if they try and say that, at this point, they have lost my goodwill. And I'm going to roll my eyes really hard. That's where I'm at. Just being honest with y'all.
Okay.
So let's start off with this vortex that they come through. Out of nowhere. Into an alley in London. They somehow... what is it that Jack has that was broken?
It's a vortex manipulator.
Manipulator, right. And they managed to come through to right after the election is over, that we had been leading up to. In previous episodes, we've been hearing about it. And, we'd also heard the name Mr. Saxon. I don't think... Had we heard that he was one of the people up for election? We had, right?
Yeah. I mean...
Okay.
Yes. I think at some point we knew he was up for election. I think in the last episode, possibly, or one before... Martha's mother said something about voting. And we've heard the name Saxon all the way back to that episode with Donna, the runaway bride.
Right. Okay,
that's the first time we hear his name.
And they're sitting around kind of talking through before they realize that the election is already over. They are sitting just like on some stoops. And there is a homeless guy with a cup banging out this rhythm that gets the doctor's attention. And we come to find out a lot later that this rhythm is part of it's a code that is being sent to the cell phones via Archangel of all the people in Britain who are going to be voting, telling them to trust this guy, to trust Saxon, and to vote for him. And also, somehow this signal served to dampen the doctor's perception of the fact that there was another Time Lord in town. Because he should have known. He should have been able to tell. But we don't really get an explanation of that.
Yeah, and that actually, I think it's almost like my perception was dampened because I didn't even pick up on that when I was watching it today.
Oh, bless. That was such a torture to try and include what I said into the thing. Yes, and one could say my perception was dampened. Could one?
Possibly.
But it's things like that. Changing of the rules, where it's just, because of this signal that he's using to send this message to human beings, that also served to keep me from telling that he was here. What? It's just, there's no explanation. This is something that could be very interesting, that I would like to know how that works. And I bet if you gave these writers a couple of minutes to think it through, they could come up with something creative and interesting as an answer. Mm-hmm. But instead, it's just this throwaway nothing line that you missed because it was such a nothing that is supposed to completely explain away how the doctor did not sense this massive threat building right under his nose.
And because I missed that, I just sort of filled in that blank for myself. Why didn't he notice? And it's, because he hasn't spent that much time there. In this time period, especially when it's determined that he could not have been there longer than 18 months.
Right.
Well, what has the doctor been doing in that consecutive 18 months? It's not like he's been hanging around London.
Yeah.
So to me, I was like, well, he didn't notice because he didn't notice. He wasn't there. He was popping in and popping out. And whenever he was popping in, there was fucking Lazarus monster and whatever.
And that's the part of the weirdness to me, is that if you hadn't pointed out that the doctor should have been able to sense that this guy was here, I wouldn't have noticed.
Right.
But you chose to point it out and then give a really sad explanation that doesn't really work about why he didn't. When that would not have been something that I would quibble about. But maybe that's something that old school Doctor Who watchers would quibble about because that had been an ability that was set up that he had before.
It's possible. I didn't come across anything saying that in the, little bit of trivia that I read about this episode, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Okay.
And we do have some pretty good Whovian scholars that listen to this show that could let us know if that's the case. If this is something can Time Lords just sense each other? And if so, why didn't he? Is this enough of an explanation?
Code supposed to do the thing? And it's also sort of strange to me that the doctor takes so long to get around to maybe it's a signal sent through the cell phones, since we've encountered that a couple of times now. That feels like the go-to explanation that you should be checking into.
Oh, but that happened in another universe, so I don't know.
Right.
And to me, that just seemed really... It's like, you've done this. Come up with a different way. Because this is what the cyber guy did.
Exactly. That, for me, not that... Obviously, Time Lords are clearly, very technological, and I don't want to say dependent on it, because that makes it sound like it feels like it's like a synergy. I hate that word, but it does feel that way. Where technology and Time Lords sort of like are both linked in a really real way.
Right. It's
where
like
they
it's
can't
been,
get along without one another.
Yeah, it's been a part of their world forever. It's not in the process of being developed and being improved on. It's just, it is.
Yeah. So I feel like doing something with technology, I'm not against that as the method, but it does sort of seem like there's so many options out there that you could have gone with, and just doing it via a cell phone. And also like the guy that he first sees like pounding this beat out is a homeless dude who does not look like he's got a cell phone.
Right.
But is somehow being influenced also.
Well, they go into some explanation about how there's like all of these satellites around the planet, and the satellites are controlled by the Archangel network. I wonder if it's not just coming through the cell phones. Maybe it's also coming through televisions and radio and everything.
Yeah, it seems like it's only really working on British people, though, because the Americans seem to not really be a fan of this guy. So...
Well, that's because Americans are assholes and don't like anyone.
Oh my god, that was before they elected an ass. Wouldn't that be nice if...
When did they think that was?
Ha ha ha. So this is when we get our first look at him as Prime Minister, open mouth kissing his wife multiple times on fucking national TV in the most awkward display.
He's a fucking delight.
Oh my god, he is so like. I really want to know what the actress that plays his companion / wife thought of this, because he is just into kissing her real hard. Like, you just fucking here for this.
I just really want to go and like track down his filmography and really dig into like, let me see some other performances that John Sim has done, because if he's always like this, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, he seems like he's just having such a good time.
Yeah.
Every time that he was on screen, I was having a better time watching this. Like,
yeah.
It, like I said, it just felt like he was the one person who really understood what he was here for. And he's like prancing around and fucking like cracking jokes as he puts a gas mask on and kills his whole cabinet.
One of my favorite scenes ever. What
a weird thing.
When he's like, gas mask, and the guy's like, what? And he takes it off. Gas mask. What's it for? For the gas.
For the gas.
And he gives a thumbs up. Oh my god. Incredible.
He's just like the scene where the journalist woman is screaming and he keeps opening and closing the door back up. Like, this is what I mean, guys. We go from that kind of scene, literally, an Austin Powers-esque spoofy scene.
Yes.
To Martha crying.
Yeah.
As people are being, like, killed by hilarious spinning robots while basically, like, a techno song is playing. Show. No, you're not nimble enough to do this.
That doesn't happen right after.
It's happening during. What are you talking about? That song is playing when she's crying. When they have the close-up of her tears in her eyes.
Oh, at the end?
Try and tell me. Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about, like, when we go from the scene where he's listening to her being killed in that room.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, within the same episode, these things are all happening, and they just can't pull off this tonal shift the way they're trying to do. They just, it's not working. I don't
disagree. I think that they wanted this to be really emotional for the doctor and have, like, real stakes involved with Martha, but they also wanted to continue doing this campy thing that Doctor Who does. And mixing the two things doesn't work. Like, if in Doomsday there was a character that was this off the wall while we're losing Rose, it wouldn't have had the same kind of impact.
No.
Like, yes, in that episode, we have Daleks and Cybermen arguing, which is arguably the best thing that's ever happened, ever. But
it's true.
That was one moment, and it didn't carry through the rest of the
Yeah.
episode. And so I do see what you're saying, because John Sim is playing this with everything he's got. Every ounce of camp that exists inside of him is coming out in every scene he's in. But for the Doctor and Martha, it's like life or death.
Yeah. And that can work. Like, that's part, again, I mentioned the Joker, and that is the thing. Having somebody treating everything like a joke when you are about to die, loved ones are about to die, when you're feeling desperate, when somebody is doing terrible violence and they are acting like it's hilarious how upset you're getting, that can be legit disturbing. Mm-hmm. But they're not playing it that way.
No, they're not.
They're like that. What you have to do with a scene like that is give it some really intense gravity in its atmosphere, and then have this one lone lunatic acting like it's all a joke, and then be disturbing because they're the outlier in a room full of emotion. But what they're trying to do here is have everybody except, like, they have his companion, who I still can't really get a read on what she's like. If she's like, she's obviously supporting him, but I can't tell if she's got the same goals as him, or if she's just a blind follower who's in love with him, or exactly what.
Sounds like they made some sort of deal. He makes some kind of comment to her. I can't remember what it's when he says at 8:02 tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Like, everything I promised you. Like, it sounds like she's in it because I think she's going to gain something from it, she believes.
I think it might be him. I think he's sort of like, let me just do this thing and then we can be together.
Maybe.
Is the, like, vibe. He didn't say that, but I feel it. I don't know if I'm right about that at all, but yeah, they have, like I said, that techno music playing. They have these robots come down and people scream in a way that feels really B horror movie-ish. And the wacky music playing when they're screaming doesn't feel like the, Tarantino-esque use of an inappropriate song during a really violent scene. It just feels like, isn't this wacky? Ha ha, hilarious. But we jump right from that to Martha crying and her family looking on in absolute horror. And it's just, none of this really is cohesive as an atmosphere.
Yeah. I think, yeah, for sure. Because if he's playing it like the Joker, which is a really good comparison. Sorry, I keep hitting my mic. The Joker also has a menace to him, or that type of character needs to have that kind of menace that makes you believe. And the only thing that makes me scared of this guy is, like, look what he did to the Doctor. But I can't, and yeah, he's killing people with these little robots, but I don't know what his end game is. And
yeah,
with someone like the Joker or that archetype, even with like Loki, he's told you his end game. Mm-hmm. You know what his goal is, so you know where the menace lies. And with this guy, it's almost like it could be anything. It could be all of you. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's interesting, not knowing his goal. That's a good point. Because really, all it seems like right now is just like, I want to kill all of the human race.
Yeah.
Which, been there, done that. Like...
Yeah, but why?
Exactly, if you're trying to enslave people, I'm even going to be more upset than you just wanting to wipe everybody out. Because really, there comes a point where if you've wiped everyone out, really, who cares? Like, it's over and nobody's here to care about it. But if you've enslaved people, we have ongoing suffering, and that I have a fucking problem with.
Right.
But, okay.
And is he just doing all of this because he wants to hurt the Doctor?
That's really kind of where I've been at, is that it feels almost petty, like he's just trying to, he's just targeting Earth because he knows the Doctor loves Earth, not really because there's something specific that he can only get from Earth.
Right. I think that's really probably more than anything, is these two have a history, and he knows that this is what's going to hurt him.
All right, so let's talk about this history.
I don't know his history.
Lady.
I know they're like nemesis.
No, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about the doctor explaining what the hell went down with this kid to make him, like, evil.
This is something that I think was made up in this episode. I don't know if this is something that is sort of Doctor Who lore. This, like, when you're 8 years old, you go and you look into the vortex, the tube of time, and and you decide whether or not you're going to be good or evil.
The tube of time. Oh, God. Yeah, does that feel like the most irresponsible shit you've ever heard, or is that just me?
I think it's irresponsible to give 16-year-olds driver's licenses, so yes.
All right, Grandma, listen. We're trying to keep the youth listening to this show.
Well, when I was 16, I didn't think I was responsible enough to drive a car, so I didn't get my license, but I just think it's a little young.
Like I said.
You're going to give 8-year-olds the keys to the universe?
It just feels like, all right, I'm going to go to that scene and read the way that he tells this, because I find this, they used to call it the shining world of the seven systems, and on the continent of wild endeavor, in the mountains of solace and solitude, there stood the citadel of the Time Lords. And then we get a look at what is a very beautiful, like, concept art illustration that really looks like the Dark Tower, like, artwork that I have seen. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or it would be on the cover of a Led Zeppelin album.
Like, honestly, it's really gorgeous, but the oldest and most mighty race in the universe, which, sir, looking down on the galaxies below, sworn never to interfere, only to watch, which, sir.
Watchers never just watch. We learned that from Buffy.
We learned that from porn. Children of Gallifrey, taken from their families at the age of 8, are to enter the academy. And some say that's where it all began. So, okay, first of all, he just says that shit. Taken from their families at the age of 8 to enter the academy. He doesn't say anything about, and this is the sort of thing that I want them to take their time, because they rush this episode hard. Like, so much happens. I don't say this often, but this needed to be 2 episodes, and they needed to give me a little bit more to work with on knowing who the master is and get into some more detail on this stuff. I would go so far as to say flashback. Like, don't have him sitting telling me a story. Let me see this. Mm-hmm. Let me watch this like it's happening. And he says, some say it's when it all began. And when he says some say, again, we're getting the impression that this is the master is somebody that everyone knew, but I don't know that as a viewer. If you're not somebody who's watched the older shows, finding out that this dude isn't just like somebody that the doctor knows and has to deal with, but kind of seems like a bit of a legend at this point. And he says, that's when the master saw eternity. And again, he says this like he was this really significant moment that happened to him, but then a moment later it's just like, as a novice, he was taken for initiation. So this happens to everybody. Mm-hmm. He stood in front of the untempered schism, a gap in the fabric of reality through which he could be seen the whole of the vortex. You stand there, 8 years old, staring at the raw power of time and space, just a child. And so again, he says one thing that makes it sound like this happened to everybody. But then when he says stuff like just a child, it makes it sound like that's not how this usually went. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes, but I got the impression that this was done to every single child.
So why doesn't he talk about it as if it happened to him? Don't you find it strange that the doctor never says anything about, like, when I had this happen, this is what I felt, but it obviously affected him in a totally different way?
Doesn't he sort of say that? What does the rest of it say?
Some would be inspired, some would run away, and some would go mad.
And then Martha asks him, what did you do? And he said, I ran.
Oh, yeah, and then we have the, like, zeroing in on his eyes as the thing. Right. I don't know, Martha, what about you? And, oh, the ones that ran away, I never stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't run away at 8.
No. And he obviously became important if he was the one only person, the only Time Lord that could end the Time War.
Maybe this is just supposed to be another instance of how he does not like to talk about himself and his past.
I'm sure that's part of it. I'm sure part of it is that there's all these previous seasons from decades earlier that maybe some of it was discussed and they assume we know, which they shouldn't. I'm curious if anybody could tell me how much of the youth of Time Lords was discussed, because in my trivia, all it said was that this is the first time a Gallifreyan child has appeared on screen, although there had been previous references to Time Tots during the Fourth Doctor's era.
God. Time Tots.
Time Tots.
Good God.
During the Fourth Doctor's era, which was like in the, 70s?
I would guess.
I'm trying to think when the Fourth Doctor was. I think late 60s, early 70s. So I don't know. That's the only thing I found about children, Gallifreyan children, in my trivia. So, but I don't scour all of the Doctor Who sites. So if somebody just knows, because I know we have a number of listeners who just know this stuff, I would appreciate it. I wanted to look at the list of the episodes from this season to try to figure out, because I agree with you that this is what story they're trying to tell. They really should have given space to it. And so I'm looking like, well, what episode would we have been able to take away? I think that most of Utopia could have been reworked.
Yeah.
So that some of this could lead in.
When it turns out that those future kind don't mean anything.
Yeah.
It feels extra rude to then short shrift something that's truly interesting like this.
Yeah. Like they could have had the reveal of the professor being the master halfway through that episode. Take out the future kind completely. And so you're partway through and suddenly here's your threat.
Yeah.
And then we have a little more space to get a little bit of history of the Doctor and the Master. And maybe this is just the arrogance of the writers assuming that everybody watching Doctor Who knows the history. When there are legitimately people like me and people like you who went into it without having watched those early seasons. And
yeah, that makes sense.
But I'm maybe giving them a little bit of credit where they don't deserve it. That it's just lazy writing in a lot of ways. Like, here's this really great speech, this really interesting story we're telling in this, like, it's campfire tales. And now we're going to get back to this other thing that we're doing and not dig into that part. The more I
think about the future kind, the more I'm just like, what were they? Because I think that's when you said I think they think that they set it up as the master is the threat, and so they're getting back to that. And I think that's what it was they set something up to be the initial threat. The future kind were the first threat that we saw, but they just don't resolve it.
Right.
And I don't, like, just if they even had done something really goofy, like, the future kind all come up against the master, and he scares them all away because it turns out that we all were preoccupied with a threat that it turns out can be completely equalized in 2 seconds by this guy that we thought was incompetent and a loser. That would have been hilarious.
Right.
To be like, oh, guys, you're all worried about this future kind, but look at this dude who just walked out in a brand new body and vaporized them all and does not give any fucks. Now are you scared of the future kind? We didn't think so.
Right.
You know?
I think it's honestly just... They didn't want to give that reveal too quickly. They wanted it to be a surprise, and it comes right at the end of the episode, so they can go right into their to be continued.
Yeah.
They really wanted to have as much of Derek Jacobi as they could, which is understandable.
True.
But and they probably thought we have to have some kind of threat here. But even in that episode, and we talked about this in the last episode, they're stuck by a chain link fence.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't even...
That's enough to stop them.
That was enough to stop them? Like, why am I supposed to be scared of these people just because they have sharp teeth?
Mm-hmm.
So it really was like... And the whole plot point was almost like an afterthought. Like, we need to have something that they're running away from.
Right.
In order to give this the momentum it needs to get to this end game. But that's not having enough faith in your own ability to tell a story if you feel like you have to have... what actually is a neutered threat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
When your threat is actually this guy who's supposed to be legitimately scary, who the doctor is legitimately scared by.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's the other thing is that we see the doctor's, like, attitude change. So we know that this guy is serious somehow. But I still haven't really seen him do too much other than sick some robots on somebody.
I mean, he vaporized the president. Where is he right now? Could we just borrow one of those little things? Those
Listen, the NSA is listening to you wanting to vaporize the president, Jamie. Watch out.
So concerned. What are those things?
Yeah, and this
Toclophane.
Oh, right. Which it turns out is some sort of like invented name for basically the boogeyman, as the doctor says, which I find really funny.
He's like, knows those don't exist.
And I meant to mention that when I was watching this episode, I watched it yesterday. I watched it twice. And I watched it yesterday with Rashawn here. And that moment where he's like, some people are inspired, some people run away. And right before he says it, Rashawn goes, and some men go mad. And then he says it, and she was just like, what did I say? She totally called that. But yeah, so it's supposed, like, the whole idea of we don't know why this kid is broken and terrible, but it probably has something to do with this initiation, which will either scare you so much you run, inspire you to what end, who knows, it might also be evil, or make you go crazy. Hey, maybe just don't do this initiation anymore, Time Lords. What do you think? Maybe this is a 60% runaway / crazy rate. I feel like that's a bad rate that you don't want to be messing with.
Look, traditions are important, okay?
God. But it's sort of, it's a similar question. Rashawn and I, on our most recent Harry Potter episode, we read the chapter where Dumbledore meets Child Voldemort for the first time. And they are trying to puzzle out exactly what made him the way that he is. And I always find it to be an interesting question. So that's another thing about this, like, this legend, I guess one would say, about him, like, this being the moment that kind of turned him. I would like to see an argument about it. I would like to see, like, that's why I said something about the flashbacks, because we don't have anybody to talk with the doctor in an intelligent way about this. He's just telling them about the thing from his history and his people that
nobody can corroborate.
Nobody can corroborate, nobody can relate to, and nobody can, like, give their own detail. Like, he clearly doesn't want to talk about his experience. And I would love it if this took place somehow in a flashback with people like, discussing what could have happened and the ways it worked for them and that sort of thing, to just give me a little bit more context, because otherwise it just feels like a fact floating in space and not in the Doctor Who space kind of way. But anyway, so let's see. This is when they figure out the whole thing about Archangel. We had that journalist get shredded. There's a moment when they're watching the TV before this scene, and that's when he's talking about how, like, all of these people for some reason are voting for this guy, but none of you seem to really have any idea what his policies even are. Mm-hmm. And Martha is talking about how reassuring and good he seemed, and is tapping out that rhythm with her hand, and the Doctor is noticing it. And at that moment, he shows up on the television, and he says, like, it could, everybody should get to be a part of this. Every lorry driver, and then he says, medical student. And the Doctor stares at Martha, grabs the television, looks at the back of it where there's like an Acme stick of dynamite glued to it, and then yells, run, and they run out of there.
It was
Can you
C4.
explain to me why him saying medical student made the Doctor realize there was a bomb attached to the TV?
No.
That's a fucking hell of a leap for me. I do not understand what made him hear that and go, oh, he's clearly about to bomb this flat.
No, I don't have any explanation for that.
I do not understand why he even wanted to do it. What was his goal?
That he wants to hurt the Doctor?
Is that it? He just wants to, like...
He might have not assumed that the Doctor was at the apartment with her, but that, she was there and the bomb would go off. But how would he know when she's going to be there if she's traveling with the Doctor?
Yeah.
How do you set the bomb off? Does he have cameras hidden around? To see when they're there? And why does saying medical student, why does that make the Doctor sort of light bulb go off above his head and be like, there must be some threat here. This is a one-room apartment. Oh, it must be behind the TV.
This set of dynamite.
Isn't it C4?
It literally says dynamite on the sides of the sticks in big white letters. It is hilarious. I might make this the screen grab for this episode. Hold on.
We didn't make one for the last one, so we still have the Blink page cover that I made.
This, like, I got so confused. I actually stopped and rewound that because that connection didn't make any sense to me. Why he would think that was the spot to look, on the back of the TV. If you think somebody's planted a bomb in your place, why is that? Does he? I guess maybe he's like relying on the mesmerizing aspect of like him being on television, that she would be glued to her TV set like everybody else.
Sure.
I don't know.
Apparently that TV was made by Magpie Electronics or something. Magpie was that shop in the 50s.
Do you know, I was looking at it just now and I was thinking, I'm pretty sure that's that logo from that other place.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's where Rose had her face taken.
Poor Rose. She really got put through the ringer. All right. I'm going to send you this screenshot so that you can see.
Okay.
I'm sending it on Skype. And this is when, like, just after her place blows up, is when she gets the call from her mom that she should come by because her and her dad are thinking about trying to get back together. And it really is poor timing. Like, if you want to lure her somewhere, maybe don't blow her place up right before you have her mom make a very suspicious call.
Yeah.
And she'd be more likely to believe you and cooperate. But I'm pretty sure now she's on high alert that somebody is doing some shit. Do you see the dynamite
I didn't get
sticks on Skype?
Yeah.
Huh.
Did you send it to someone else?
No, it says to you. Oh, wait, no. Hold on. There it goes. I had uploaded it, but I hadn't pressed send. That's what it was. It's coming.
I'll let you know when it gets here.
Her dad finally caves because she asks, Dad, is there anyone else there? And he finally yells, yes. And do you see it? That is some Wile E. Coyote shit.
Wait, what is this timer? Is that like a what is that?
It looks like, legit, it looks like somebody took a thermostat off the wall.
Yeah, like a thermostat.
Yep.
Okay. And it's
I don't know.
2.2 seconds. God, they ran fast.
They did. Yeah. There's so many pieces of this episode that I don't understand. Why they're trying to like gather her up like this after trying to blow her up. Like the timing of all this just doesn't make any sense, you guys. It just doesn't. Like, y'all know where she is and you're planting bombs in her house. You don't need to lure her with her parents.
Right.
Just go get her.
Just go get her.
I'm like, unless it's just, I want the extra psychological aspect of her knowing her parents are in danger, which then just tell her you have them. You don't even need to do this lure shit then. And if that's not even what it's about, then just don't do that part. And she calls her brother and tries to tell him to like hide, and he does not take her seriously because why would you? She sounds crazy. And in the middle of the phone call with him is when they get interrupted by the master just being like, what's up? I hear you. And the doctor takes the phone and begins to talk to him himself. And they talk about the thing that I had asked you about, which is how they pick their names.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something about the doctor choosing a name that essentially means someone who makes people better. How sanctimonious is that? Which I had to say. I cackled. He's not wrong. I've been saying. This doctor does have a problem with thinking that he knows what's best for everyone, and his little reaction to Jack revealing that he is involved with Torchwood now is, y'all know how I feel about that. Like, dude, shut up. It's so not about you anymore. Nobody cares. That sounds like Torchwood. When he's like, oh, let's sneak up behind this guy and kill him. You know what, doctor? You should sneak up behind him and kill him.
Right.
If you're only saving this guy because it's going to make you feel good at the expense of who knows how many fucking thousands of people who wind up getting attacked by these ridiculous little robot guys, I think that you are being extremely selfish because you want to keep your own hands clean. And you're not actually doing that. The lives of all these people are also on your hands because you just didn't want to be that guy. And that's the thing. Sometimes you got to be that guy. And I'm not impressed, and nobody else is impressed, and you're frustrating. And you throwing around accusations like, oh, it sounds like Torchwood. Good. It should. Somebody needs to be.
I was watching Kristen Bell on Hot Ones. You know that show where they eat a bunch of hot wings? On YouTube?
No.
Oh, it's really great. It's
that series of words did not... It was not what I was expecting. You know, that show where they eat a bunch of hot wings on YouTube.
It's really good. The Key and Peele one is absolutely the best one. But they were asking her about philosophy because of The Good Place and if she's like taken on any philosophies or has it affected how she lives her life. And she was talking about these two different sort of opposing philosophies where one is, would you kill one person to save all the people? Or the other one is, you save that one person, because they need the saving. And how she sort of goes back and forth between the two. It's essentially the trolley problem, which is addressed on the show too. And that's like what you're saying with the doctor and Jack, where Jack's like, no, we should just kill him. Kill this one guy, and all of these problems go away, and everybody's safe. And the doctor is like, we have to save the one guy. Mm-hmm. But he also wants to save everybody else. But he is selfish. This is a Time Lord. He doesn't want to just kill the other remaining Time Lord. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the muddiness of his motivations, because he doesn't want anybody to get hurt either. Right. But he's not willing to... I mean, he's kind of never willing in this series to kill people unless he has to. Mm-hmm. Somebody did point out to me that the Doctor used guns in the old series, that's a very specific to this Doctor, or from 9 on, not using guns, which I thought was just a Doctor thing. So, yeah, it seems like he knows what's good for everyone, but he selfishly doesn't want to kill this guy who, even though it's essentially his enemy, is also the only other living Time Lord. Right. But Jack's not wrong to say, I could just go up behind him and slit his throat, and all these problems would be gone. And for the Doctor to be like, see, Torchwood, bad influence, evil. Like, no, you know that this is Jack, right? Like, right. He's going to bring his influence and his point of view to this organization that he basically rebuilt from the scraps. In your honor. Yeah, in your honor. From the scraps of what was left over, I'm going to take over this sort of watchdog thing that, you know, polices the skies or whatever, but I guess we would have to watch some Torchwood to really get into that. Not agreeing to it.
Why are you opening that door, Jamie? You know the emails that we're going to start getting.
I know, because now you know that Jack is alive and part of Torchwood, so I can open that door a crack so that you know that's what that show is. Gotcha. Jack rebuilt this organization and is leading it.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, now we know that those perception inhibitor thingies didn't even work on this Doctor, or this Master, so they couldn't have done what Jack was suggesting anyway. Mm-hmm. But I stand by that was the smarter way to go. I just, like, if they had worked that way.
You know, if there was an actual thing, a perception inhibitor or whatever, that we could just put a necklace around our necks and sort of glide through without being bothered, I would totally buy one of those.
Yeah, I am all about the attention, so
I know
that
you
does
are.
not appeal to me at all. I might do something like that if I decided that I wanted to go out looking really just shitty. Yeah. I didn't want anybody judging me for it.
I don't mean really all the time, but there are definitely times where I just want to go about my business and not be spoken to.
Yeah, true. Then you run into, like, because I'm thinking about, like, walking through Philly and getting accosted by people who want you to sign petitions or give them money or buy something. But then I'm like, oh, but if I had that on, I'd get hit by a fucking car. Like, that would just have, that would be a real double-edged sword. Well, you still shouldn't just walk
in the middle of the street, so.
Yeah, but you know how that is. It's just like, all you have to do is, like, just not quite be paying as much attention for just a second. And some other car sure isn't. I got hit by a car in Philly after looking both ways and the car coming to a stop. And I began to cross, and this person had not even seen me. They came to a stop because there was a stop sign, but not because I was there. And they were on their phone, and they just fucking hit the gas to pull through when I was in the middle of the intersection, and they were looking in the opposite direction. They were looking where they were heading, not where they, like, were passing. And they fucking hit me. And they were luckily going very slowly. So I was not hurt at all. But I just stood there and stared at him. And the guy, like, rolled his window down and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was just like, are you serious? Like, so when it can happen when it's broad daylight, you're wearing a bright yellow dress and you've got a fucking wall of hair and they still don't see you.
Yeah.
I'm not optimistic about the odds if I, you know. But I could definitely see it if you're just wanting to like go for a jog and do it at night and you're a woman and afraid of being fucking accosted.
Yeah.
Or harangued. I like the word harangued.
There are definitely times where it would come in handy.
Also, well, I guess it wouldn't work on a camera, right? I was going to say like you could rob banks, but probably not.
Yeah, because you're not invisible. They
that
they
camera
kind of
would still
see you,
pick
but
you
don't
up.
see you.
So you'd have to, if you wanted to do a crime, it would have to be a crime where there's no cameras.
Yeah, which is generally when you should do a crime, I would assume.
One would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so they have their talk about their names, and then let's see, where do we jump to? This conversation with them lasts a minute. He's asking about like what the creatures are that he has named. I have a theory that they're Daleks inside of those little like weird roundies. And because he says something like, you don't want to know. Yeah, baby Daleks. They're babies. They're like, I don't know, in the egg Daleks. But he says something when the doctor asks,
Someone
what are they? And he's
please
like, you don't want
try.
to know, it'll break your heart. And I'm like, is it Daleks? And that's going to break his heart because they're his enemy.
I just really want somebody to draw an egg with, like, what's inside the egg is a tiny little Dalek.
And it's metal. It's got a tiny metal housing, of course.
Yeah. And it's, like, hooked up to, like, umbilicals.
Oh, God. I hate this. This is a growing horror. Oh, my God. Did I forget to say something about, what's-her-face Osborne saying he can tick my box any day?
Yeah.
This bitch. What are you doing?
Sharon Osbourne. Yeah, it was, the celebrities that we see are Sharon Osbourne, the band McFly, who I vaguely remember seeing that name, but never ever heard any of their music.
No idea who they are.
And somebody named Anne Widdicombe, and I don't know who she is.
Mm-mm.
So.
Me neither.
They all endorse Harold Saxon. Harry.
Tick my box any day. Ugh, girl, what are you doing? So, and he has like this fascination with the Teletubbies as well. So when this robot comes in, he says something about like, oh, that's evolution. And I'm like, is it? Okay, sure. And then we get the stories, the perception displacer things. They walk towards the airfield where he's meeting up with the president. And there's this like weird conversation that he has that's like, it's all nonsense. It's okay. This dude, first of all, I'm trying to find the exact moment when he says this, because he says something about how the UN could like remove him from power, which I'm like, that's not how the UN works at all.
Nope.
What are you even talking about? The British Army will stand down from now on. UNIT has control of this operation. The first contact policy was decided by the Security Council in 1968, and you've just gone and ignored it. And he says something about new job, paperwork. I looked under the settee. I found a sweet and a pen, and have you met the wife? It's a real weird, like, does his wife have mesmerizing powers?
No, I think he's just trying to unsettle him.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, yeah, here it is. There are provisions at the UN to have you removed from office unless you are very, very careful, which I'm like, no, that's not at all a thing. And then goes on to be like, the whole point of this is that we are supposed to be meeting with extraterrestrials on essentially like neutral ground. Sovereign land is not an option. I will be meeting with them on this certain aircraft, Valiant, and I will be meeting with them alone, not you. Which is apparently exactly what the Master wanted, right? Is this what he was hoping for? I get the feeling this is what he wanted. For them to come in and try and take it over and then get zapped on screen for everybody to see.
Probably.
Yeah. Okay.
What I don't understand is if UNIT and the UN set up this protocol about first contact, that it has to be done in neutral ground, not on sovereign land, which I would assume is not just saying not on British land, but any country has to be in some neutral zone. Why then does the American president say, I will meet with them alone, not you? Like, what gives the American... This is just American arrogance from a British perspective. This guy's going to walk in here. It's just like in Love Actually when the American president shows up and he's just a complete lecherous ass.
Right. A Bill Clinton.
Yeah. It's like, these are the protocols, but they don't apply to me. I'm going to do this, not you, because I'm mad that you think you have the right to. When I'm the American guy, I have the right.
Yeah, it seems more like, I can't believe that you would do this, and since you have been so bald-faced about it, you have lost everyone else's goodwill, and now I get to do it my way, because everybody's mad at you, and they're willing to let me break the rules in the way that I want. Because you've ruined it for yourself.
Either way, he's still breaking the rules as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds that way. Or maybe they put a new provision in place where he's the one that can come in and take it because of this guy breaking his agreement. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he was, elected somehow by everybody who's angry. I don't know. All I'm saying is, he calls him the last president of America, which I find hysterical. It's like, I'm just so not used to hearing it put that way. President of the United States?
Yeah.
American president? Okay. But the president of America?
Yeah.
I think it's just because, we're North America. And we're not even Canada's part of North America.
Right, we're the United States of America.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound right.
Those Brits, what do they know?
Yeah, yeah.
Just like I don't know very much about how British stuff works, so...
If we called him the Prime Minister of Scotland, I'm sure they'd be very upset.
True.
But yeah, so this dude takes over completely in a very Doctor-esque way, to be honest. And he leans over and tells his own wife, we have a private plane ready and waiting. We should reach the Valiant within the hour. And that obviously was not supposed to be part of the plan. I got the idea that he wanted this to happen, but then the look that he gives him, I was confused about. I don't know. And he turns around and stares right in the direction of the doctor and Martha and Jack and looks away like he doesn't see them. But there's an expression that the doctor gets on his face that makes me think the doctor maybe does know that he can see them. Mm-hmm. And that they're all kind of playing along with each other. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Though, so I can't say. I can't get you to say, because you are spoiled.
I also think that maybe the master decided in that moment that he would use this situation to his advantage and kill the president on screen. Because he had a whole plan in place that 802, all this stuff is going to happen. He, figured because he was the one who mentioned these creatures and showed them on TV that he would be in charge of it, and he would probably just randomly select someone to kill to show what they can do. But because the president inserted himself into the situation, it just made it better for him.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Because I was like, part of me feels like this is on purpose, and part of me feels like this is not part of the plan.
I think he took advantage of the situation.
And this is when he has Martha's parents unloaded and offers her dad a hand, but then yanks his hand away. Which again, just the weirdness of this moment, it feels very Jokery to me. And Also, the imagery of these two people who are black being manhandled by the police for no good reason by a white, apparently, prime minister who is mocking them. Whew. Sucks.
Yeah.
Don't love this today. They all teleport out of there and, again, are really in pain after they land wherever it is that they go. It looks like they're in the Valiant. Yeah, that's right. This is where they go first. And they find the TARDIS, which the Master has done something to.
The Doctor says he cannibalized it.
Yeah, what exactly does that mean? Is he siphoning power off it?
Yeah, he's using it for something. I can't go into detail. He's using it for something.
Okay. He calls it a paradox machine? Yeah. Something like that. I don't know what that means. He doesn't really explain. He just gets real smug towards the end of this episode with his not explaining shit, just trust me, I have a plan, oh didn't I mention that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sir.
Paradox machine, yes.
But whatever it is, the Doctor is really appalled that he has done this. There's a feeling to it of just this is not done. The fact that he is a Time Lord who has done this is kind of unforgivable is the vibe that I get.
Yes. Also, they're on a flying ship.
They're on the Avengers ship.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, did they take that design from this?
No. This is very large and sprawling, and while that ship in the Avengers is very big, it still feels like it's an aircraft carrier of sorts, where this just looks like a floating city almost. It's very big.
Yeah.
Their little, airplane runways go off all over the place.
Yeah, it just had a similar, I thought that the Avengers one was shaped like an A, and this looked like it was almost shaped like an A, but it might just be a triangle.
I can't remember what the Avengers one was shaped like. I felt like
And the downward-facing propellers, that the way that those are positioned and how they look is really similar to me.
It is really similar, yeah.
But yeah, as they are,
I wonder if
this,
Joss Whedon. I wouldn't be surprised if Joss Whedon saw this and took subconsciously some of that.
Yeah, I could see that happen. How often do we ever do something that's actually original? That isn't borrowing from something else.
And it also just
noticing.
Physically makes sense for the...
Did you just say
yes.
Physically?
Because it's not physically, it's in physics. It makes sense for those propellers to face that way so that it stays floating. So even if Whedon, not to give him credit, but maybe he didn't steal the idea, it just makes sense. Shut up.
Physically. I like how you're well, it's not physically. Saying that would have been ridiculous.
I was trying to talk about physics.
Oh, God. From an engineering standpoint.
That would have been better.
How's that?
No, I like to make up my own words.
So this is when we see the president having the most awkward conversation with these alien robots. Honestly, I don't envy this president, not just because he got blown up, but how do you make conversation with a whole new species? To small talk with human beings is hard enough, thank you very much.
And they're like, you're not our master. And he's like, I can be your master. I'm your master. Can we not?
Dude, what are you doing? They're not house elves. Stop it. They're clearly trying to tell you something. Listen. Yeah, I ask of the human race to join me in welcoming our friends. And they just vaporize him. Mm-hmm. It's really, like, quite sudden. It's impressive. And the smile on the master's face throughout the scene is really something. I enjoy that a lot. Just how excited he is. It's like he's watching this great prank unfold that he has set up. You know, that's really like the vibe you get off him throughout this. And Sphere 2, the man is stupid. Sphere 3, the master is our friend. Sphere 1, where's my master? Pretty please. So then he gets up. I have this effect. People just get obsessed. And he is in the middle of talking about how, oh, this is crazy. And that is when he turns around and is just like, guess what, Uncle Sam? And I like that he calls him Uncle Sam. So after they zap this dude, and it becomes pretty clear that this is a madman that we're dealing with who has some sort of power over these creatures, he claps his hands and jumps up and down while his wife looks like she's maybe going to have to change her panties. And he has the doctor get grabbed up and apparently knew that he was there the whole time. And uses this little mini reversed version of the Lazarus experiment to age up the doctor by 100 years, which, correct me if I'm wrong, the doctor's hundreds of years old already, isn't he?
Yes.
Why does 100 years age him like this?
Trying to think of
Jamie,
what would make sense. Because that's a good question. But I guess because he regenerates, so it like rebuilds all of his cells.
So this is it's just that
it's aging.
It's not that he doesn't age, it's that he just doesn't keep the same body long enough for it to age.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then so what he's
pretty
doing
much this
is
can be undone by him
body.
Getting out into another body.
What?
This can be undone by him getting out into another body.
In theory, yeah, probably. If he wanted to, like...
He could just regenerate.
Die and regenerate.
Which, why wouldn't you? It seems like he can barely talk. This seems miserable.
Yeah.
Why are you... What's the matter?
Nothing.
You seem mad.
I'm not. I swear I'm not. I just had... You got me with a question that I didn't have. I had to really think about, why does that happen? Yeah. I think it's just this body.
Okay. So is it sort of supposed to be that he was the one responsible for getting Dr. Lazarus the tech needed to start this project?
Yes, we did hear in that episode that Saxon had funded it.
Right. Okay. That's what I'm thinking of. And he kills Jack, but is like really excited because Jack is just going to come back so he can kill him over and over again. Mm-hmm. Which sucks to be you, Jack. This is like some Sisyphusian type shit. Or what's that guy that gets his liver eaten over and over again?
I don't...
You know the one?
No.
Ah, shit.
Is that in one of the Greek myths?
I think it's Prometheus. When he gave us fire, he got punished. Prometheus liver. Yep, Prometheus is chained to a rock in the Caucasus for eternity, where his liver is eaten daily by an eagle, only to be regenerated by night due to his immortality.
That's terrible.
Yeah. So that's where Jack's at, pretty much, is what I'm getting. So, sucks to suck, Jack. The amount of silence in this episode from Jamie has to be a record. I'm really just like, I'm I feel like somewhere along the line, I crossed a threshold.
No, it's not that. It's that there's another episode, so there's only so much I can comment on.
Gotcha.
Because in the next episode, it's just all Jack's liver being eaten over and over again. You nailed it. And
I cracked it.
Shocking.
So he ages the doctor up. He goes and tells everybody about his diabolical plan to end the world. He says, "Here come the drums," and then that song, Voodoo Child, begins, and the heavens break open. His wife is like dancing on the platform behind him. And all of these robots drop down from above. He says later that it's like billions of them. Mm-hmm. 6 billion? It's like one per person, pretty much. Right?
Yeah. Is that
essentially?
Essentially, yeah.
And he says that he wants to, quote, decimate the population, which pedants among us know. Pedants? Haha, tell me, pedants. Is it pedants or is it pedants? Know that decimate means specifically to reduce by 1/10. And he is being very precise about it. And that is what he wants, to reduce the population by 1/10.
I thought you would like that.
I did. I appreciated that. And I love the fact that he has this, like, these robots that can, like, shoot lasers as they're coming down. You see them, like, shooting little, like, boop, 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 boop. But in the end, when it's time to attack, it's just a fucking bunch of knives that come out from the sides. Like, there's something so old school in a cruel way about that. Just like, well, you know, we could zap you from afar, but that's so impersonal. We really like the gore. So we're going to use these many, many knives. Not just the one knife, because we like to hear you scream for such a long time that someone can open and close the door multiple times and you will still be screaming. That's our particular favorite modus operandi. So let's get all these out. And this is when the doctor, all aged up, is looking at Martha, who is crying, and there's a woman yelling over the radio, "This is Geneva. We're getting slaughtered down here. Valiant report. Help us. For God's sake, help us." And the doctor hands something off to Martha. I guess it's the bit of Jack's. It's his watch.
It's the vortex manipulator.
And she backs up and looks at everybody, looks at her family, and she bloops herself right out of there. Into a field. I don't understand exactly where she chose to go.
She might not have chosen.
It just goes...
It might have been already preset, or maybe the doctor set it.
Interesting, okay. And it wasn't like... It was not time travel. It was just teleportation.
Yeah.
Because these things are still coming down from the sky. There's fires everywhere because they just keep missile launching, apparently. And she is watching them and she says, "I'm coming back." And then she runs off into the trees. And I have no idea what she's intending to do. It was a weird moment because it felt like a weird place to teleport to. But the doctor is looking down at the destruction of everything with the master's hand on his shoulder, smiling about how he's has dominion over it all. And that is the end of the episode. So. Until
the conclusion.
So the next one's the season 3 finale,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
My trivia tells me that the master has caused people to age prematurely before.
Ooh, okay.
and that he also wears variations of various outfits that the Master has worn from different stories.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. I really like little, like, nods to things like that. It really tickles me when they take the time to do things like that. I would love, if anybody has, like, non-spoilery information, screenshots of, like, here's what they were referencing with this outfit. I would definitely be game to see that because I'm always into costumes anyway.
Yeah. I've only seen one, like, not a whole episode. It was like a, I don't know, 5-minute scene or something from a previous Master that was pretty fucking goofy. And I don't remember what he was wearing. Yeah, it was like a really, very 70s sort of over-the-top.
Nice.
Situation.
Situation.
It was, and Sarah Jane was in it. I think that's why somebody, like, shared it. To, like,
gotcha.
show an example of Sarah Jane, like, being sassy towards the Doctor. Like, talking back to him.
Yeah, I find that, like, because Owen Wolf, he's super into comic books. Mm-hmm. And when a character comes up in something and he'll be like, you want to see their original costume? And I'm always just like, no, I don't. They're always so upsetting and so goofy and stupid looking that it just ruins everything for me. I feel like there has been, like, 1 or 2 exceptions where the original costume is actually pretty rad. But most of the time it's so bad and you're just like, who on earth ever thought that this looked cool or intimidating or anything other than, like, absurd?
I remember when the X-Men movie came out, the first one, that people were upset that the outfits that they were wearing were black. Because they don't wear black outfits in the comics. And then I looked at, like, screenshots of the comics and I was like,
You guys want them to look like that?
I think there's a reason they're wearing black leather. It's because Halle Berry's going to look better in black leather than this outfit.
And there are definitely times where it's like, things get a little too gritty. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we want to make everything look tactical. I'm just like, oh, whatever, get over it.
Like the Justice League.
Ugh, everything's gray.
Yeah.
Gunmetal. What color should it be? Gunmetal. No, I know, but what else? No, just gunmetal. A gunmetal S over a gunmetal chest with gunmetal boots.
Yeah.
But I do like things like Luke Cage having the yellow inside his hoodie.
Yeah.
Little tiny nods like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, we know what you're looking for here.
Or
I'll give you a little bit of something.
Or like the fact that David Tennant's character in Jessica Jones was in the comics called Purple Man. Mm-hmm. And instead of having him be this purple man on the show, he just wore a lot of purple, which was fine.
And it looked great.
Yes, it did.
It was not even something where you'd be like, this guy wears a lot of purple, huh? You were just like, damn, this guy dresses really well. Makes sense. All right. Well, Jamie, do you want to mention your little dealie?
I do, but I want to share some reviews first.
Oh, do it.
We have 3 new reviews. Thank you, guys. First one is Hootastic. This show is, it's Hootastic with a question mark. This show is, exclamation point. 5 stars by Debley from New Zealand.
Thank you, Debley.
This show is as crazy as Doctor Who is. Coming from HP, I was worried about not liking a different co-host, but boy was I wrong. Jamie is awesome, and her and Natasha are fantastic. They like to talk about the show and life, and it just makes my day so much more enjoyable. Natasha is new to Doctor Who, and Jamie's there to help her. Well, when she can. Enjoy the crazy. I just wish I had more hours so I could catch up on all the fun. And that was from Debbie P.
Yay!
So thank you. The second one is Stands the Test of Time, 5 stars by Skeptical Mario from the United States.
I know Skeptical Mario.
Do you?
Yes.
This legendary podcast is one of the most prominent products of the 21st century. Jamie and Unspoiled host Natasha have a great time discussing each episode of this classic show, while sometimes going off on hilarious tangents or sharing personal stories. A small upside of being stuck in 2019 is that I can leave a review while the podcast is still ongoing. Keep up the great work, ladies, and watch out for that climate change. Thank you from the future, I think.
That's just going to be a sign off that I start using. Watch out for that climate change, comma, Natasha.
And the third one is Hooray, Doctor Who, 5 stars by LDub12 from the United States. This was my first Unspoiled podcast with Jamie, and I am enjoying every minute. I cannot wait for Natasha to see the upcoming seasons. It is going to be great. Super fun podcast to listen to along with as I rewatch the series. Thanks, ladies. So thank
Yay!
you, Elle.
Thank you, Elle.
Mario, and thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Mario, also. One of the most, what is it Mario said? One of the most prominent products of 2019?
21st century.
21st century, oh. Oh, wow, okay.
Legendary podcast.
I feel like that's meant to be a compliment, but really comes across as terrible news. Don't say that. Oh, no.
Maybe because he's speaking to us from the future, question mark. He's letting us know a little bit of a spoiler that we're going to be massive someday.
Well, I approve this message. Yeah, let's do that. I like it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the reviews. If you guys are listening and haven't left a review yet, please leave us a review.
Do it. I know some people are frustrated that you have to get iTunes in order to leave a review, and I appreciate that sucks, but also it's free to do. It's a pain in the ass, but it doesn't cost anything. So, if you're just trying to save some pennies but still do something awesome, that's the thing to do.
It's true.
Just saying.
The more reviews we get, the more we move up the ranks, the more we come up in people's searches.
Yep. Yeah, it's I think people really underestimate. Like, I joke around about only leave a good review, but to be honest, it doesn't matter. Even if you leave a bad review, it still shows up as an extra bit in our column, like a tally, and it still winds up making us show up higher on the results page. So you can have a podcast that has 2,000 one-star reviews, but if it's got 2,000 reviews, it's at the top of the list, baby. It's still going to show up. So real quick, before you tell your thing, I'm going to say hi to new patrons.
Okay.
We have this week, or these last 2 weeks, I guess, since I was gone for LeakyCon, Laura Hines, Charlie Hauser, Megan Lloyd, Andrew, John Jors, Jessica Henderson, Aaron Perry, Bridget Costello, Manuela Newman, and Angela Hopkins, Amanda Farlinger, Toasted Toad, Jessica Wood, Andrea, who else? Mary DeWaters, and Maria Teresa Baumgarten. So thank you so much to all of you for becoming patrons. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank
you.
I
hope that you guys are enjoying stuff. Miles and I are going to be covering on next week, Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the movie New Moon.
Oh, boy.
I'm super excited about it because it's super bad. So I can't wait. I'm just very excited about everything. That's what I'm saying. All right, ma'am, take it away. What's going on with you?
All right, so I have mentioned before that I'm going to Dragon Con, which is in 2 weeks. And I decided to treat myself because when am I going to have this opportunity again? And I purchased a photo op opportunity with Mr. David Tennant.
Whee!
So I've joked that I am going to die when I see him. And now I'm going to actually get to speak to him. So if I die, now you know why. Also, there are a couple other people from the show that are going to be at Dragon Con. Freema Agerman, who plays Martha, and Catherine Tate, who was Donna.
Yay!
They're going to be there, and there also is going to be a photo op opportunity with all three of them. And so Krista started a GoFundMe to help me raise the funds to get to do that. It costs about $220. But how cool would it be if I got to, in my unspoiled Doctor Who t-shirt, get a photo taken with 3 people who were on the show? So if you guys would like to contribute, it's up on the Unspoiled Whovian page. It's on the patrons group, and I will add it to the regular main Unspoiled page. If you guys want to just throw $1 or so at it, that'd be great.
Do it!
And,
it'd be really cool to get Jamie to tell Martha that I love her.
Which I would definitely tell Martha and Donna that you love them, because Donna made a pretty big impression on you.
They should definitely be roommates, and the Doctor should be left behind. They're too good for him.
And I plan on mentioning, hopefully to all of them, but at least to David Tennant, that we do this podcast. Maybe he'll listen.
That'd be so amazing.
It would. But I'm very excited. It's kind of a dream come true kind of thing, so.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, guys, help a sister out. Wow, that's exciting. Just 2 weeks? What's the days?
It'll be on Saturday the 30th, I think.
Okay, cool. Right at the very, very end.
Well, the convention is from Thursday through Monday. DragonCon's really
Weird.
long con. Like, the first night, Thursday is like all these parties and whatever. They do a big thing at the aquarium. I bought the 5-day pass because that was the most cost-effective way to do it. But I'm not planning on going except on, like, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And
Gotcha.
I haven't even decided if I'm going all 3 days, but David Tennant is scheduled to be there Friday and Saturday, so I want to make sure I get in all the Doctor Who stuff that's going on, at the very least. And my photo session is on Saturday.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. But I might die. Just of pure joy. Just collapse.
She is, guys, I really wish that somebody would be taking film, because you've talked about how you just, like, lost it and babbled, like, incoherently when you've met certain celebrities, and I would love to catch that moment and see if that actually happened.
It's always the people I don't expect to be that way around. Other people that I would have expected to freak out, I was totally cool. But
so you'll be fine with David, but when you meet Donna, it'll be terrible.
Probably. That's probably the way it would go. Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I'm hoping, like, they're still adding people as the days go on. So I'm really hoping that John Barrowman might end up at the con again, because he comes to DragonCon quite a bit. So I'm really, really, like, crossing my fingers that he's available.
He would just drop in.
I would love it.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, because Krista got to meet him a couple of years ago randomly.
Oh,
she didn't even know who he was. It's so annoying.
That's precious. There's something about that specifically that I'm just like, isn't that such a Krista thing to have happen?
Yeah, she's like, do you know John Barrowman? And I was like, what?
What?
Yeah. And she's like, he's really nice. And I was just like, I'm so mad right now.
I love that sort of thing, though. That really is how life works. There's the one person to whom it would mean everything, who's obsessed with it, and then the person who could not give any shits, and that is the one that winds up in the position where it's like all working out for them. Inevitably.
Yeah. Do you have any news?
Do I have any news? Well, I just did LeakyCon. We live casted on the Facebook page all of the 2 panels that we did. One of them with Mark Ashiro from some of you may know from Mark Does Stuff, and he was great. And then we did another panel with Robin and Bayana from Black Girls Create. And I think both panels went really well. The one with Mark was about what it's like to experience Harry Potter as an adult in front of an audience of people. And it was just really about how the Harry Potter fandom tends to be so much more welcoming to noobs and is a lot more tolerant of criticism to the property than most fandoms tend to be. And then the one with the Black Girls Create Wizard team, that was about rethinking what Ilvermorny, the American wizarding school, would actually be like, considering how enormous the United States is, how many different traditions were already in place and native people were already here, and colonialism being rejected by certain people, or, you know, the role that people who had been enslaved but turned out to be wizards would play. And it was a really interesting conversation that led me to the conclusion, not even just about being disappointed that J.K. had lacked imagination when she came up with the concept of Ilvermorny, but more disappointed that she had cheated herself out of a really cool series of ideas that we just came up with in an hour.
Yeah.
And she could have done something really wild with it and just did basically Hogwarts all over again. But I was the sole white woman on a panel with 3 black women. And so they had a whole other perspective to bring to everything. And I mostly listened, and it was hilarious. So highly recommend that one too. And I'm going to be releasing them as audio once LeakyCon sends me the audio files. I don't have them, but they record it on their end and then send them out.
Okay.
So I won't be able to give you guys a date on when that's coming, because last year it tended to be a while, and I wound up having to like remind them again before they sent it. But it will be coming, and hopefully I can post that as something to fill up the gap when we have a missed week or something.
Will that be on the patrons only feed?
No, these are going to be released on all feeds that are currently running.
Okay.
And I'm also going to put them on the Harry Potter feed, even though that is not currently running. So I'll be putting it on here and on the Dresden Files feed. And I guess those are the 2 iTunes facing shows that I've got going right now. So yeah, those 2.
Okay.
And Harry Potter. So yeah.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think you guys, hopefully last year's recording came out really well. I was impressed with the quality of it. So hopefully it did that well this year too.
Yeah, that's why I asked you while you were there if it was going to be released as audio, because watching the video, sometimes the ambient noise, it can be hard to like focus. Mm-hmm. And so I was hoping that there was going to be an audio for it so I can actually pay good attention.
Yeah, last year's audio, they have mics with dampeners, which has its pluses where there's not a lot of audience noise coming through, but then the audience will ask a question and you don't really hear it.
Right.
And she tended, and by she I mean Robin, she was pretty good about repeating whatever they had just been asked when responding, so that if you were listening and didn't hear it, you will know. But
so the audience isn't given a microphone to ask their question into?
No.
Okay.
There are some that are set up that way where the audience can come up and mention when you know that there's going to be a lot of audience interaction. But we didn't necessarily aim for that off the top, and it just wound up going in that direction.
Okay.
But yeah, I thought it was a really fun discussion, so I'd be interested to hear what you guys think about it once they go up.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear it.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, guys, thank you all so much again for listening. Hope that you've been enjoying this. I'm sorry that I raked this show over the coals this week, but
you weren't as
negative
as you think you were. It was legitimate, like, gripes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do. I do too. But I hope that y'all can, roll with it and see what I'm talking about. So, all right, guys. We will see you next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Watch out for that climate change.